Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Lori Jennings, and I am the GSA Small Business GWAC team lead. This is the first in a series of training events to educate you on Polaris tools and processes. We plan to host an eBuy training next Thursday afternoon, and Zoom details for that session will be sent this week. Please note that this session will be recorded. Please note that all participants are in a listen-only mode, but we do have a question and answer pod within your Zoom tools. Today, we are excited to have team members from GSA's Supply Chain Risk Management Division to provide us with guidance on C-SCRM requirements and reporting. So please welcome Amber Mays, Tarina Brown, Anthony Miller, and Amex Bendu. I will now turn this over to Tarina. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori, and good afternoon. As Lori said, my name is Tarina Brown, and I'm an Information Technology Specialist in the Information Technology Security Division. Today, my colleagues and myself, Anthony Miller and Amex Bendu, are going to start out and discuss you and walk you through what we are going to be looking for when we review the C-SCRM plans. So this training is going to focus on specific sections of the C-SCRM plan template, which you should have received already. You should have also received the C-SCRM plan preparation guide, and we strongly encourage you to use it as you work through your C-SCRM plan. The guide is designed to help you work through and explain the template and support you in completing each section correctly. Our hope is that by using template, following the preparation guide, and attending this training, you'll have the information you need to submit a strong plan, or at least one that is acceptable and meets all requirements. Next slide, please. So on the screen, you'll see the agenda. And we have a lot of information to cover. Next slide, please. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. So for the C-SCRM plan portion, we'll look at what a C-SCRM plan actually is, because some of you may not be familiar with them. We'll look at the importance of it, how we came up with the control set that we have in the C-SCRM plan template, and go through the different sections. Next slide, please. So did you know that according to various sources, at least 35% of all data breaches in 2024 originated from a third-party compromise? And that's up 6.5% for 2023. So looking at your supply chain and understanding what those risks are is very important. Some of you may even be thinking, what are they referring to when they say or mention the C-SCRM plan? So a C-SCRM plan is a formal, structured approach to managing cybersecurity risk associated with your supply chain. And note there that I said your supply chain, right? Because it's important that when you do the plan that you're focusing on your supply chain. You should think of it as a comprehensive strategy. It outlines the specific C-SCRM requirements relevant to your organization or system and details the security controls that you have in place or you plan to implement to meet those requirements. It's about ensuring that you're meeting necessary security standards. It's an integral part of the broader risk management framework. And it's not a one-time effort, but rather a living document that's going to guide you through continuous improvement of your security and privacy posture. So I'll try to describe it in a different way. So imagine you have a chain. Your organization is one link in that chain, but you're connected to many other links, whether they're suppliers, other vendors, or whomever. So the C-SCRM plan is that ongoing process of assessment, mitigating, and continuous improvement to make sure all of those links are strong and don't introduce weakness into your overall security. So your link could be strong, but if one of your supplier links are weak, then essentially your supply chain and your risk are elevated. Next slide, please. All right, so when you look through the template, you see that there's a control set in there. The Cybersecurity Supply Chain Risk Manager, C-SCRM, it covers a broad set of controls that's outlined in the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, or NIST, Special Publication 853, Revision 5. So there's over 1,000 controls in that control set. And then you have NIST SP 800-161, Rep 1, Update 1, that has a different control set, right? So that's 294 controls there. Within NIST SP 800-161, there's also a C-SCRM baseline, and there are 92 controls in that baseline. So on the bottom of the slide, you'll see that Polaris baseline that only covers about 40 controls. So when we're selecting those controls, we made sure that we selected ones that were considered to be reasonably implemented by any size business, right? So it doesn't matter if you're small business, large business, whatever. These are controls that should be reasonably able to be implemented by you. The controls also address the 4 domains listed in the CISA vendor SCRM template, right? So it covers security, integrity, quality, as well as resilience. We also wanted to make sure that we help ensure the applicability across a diverse vendor base, right? Then we looked at the controls that would be expected to be primarily implemented at the organizational level rather than the system level. And lastly, the controls selected were C-SCRM focused and technical in nature, and they didn't require any additional documentation or existing plans, with the exception of only 2 controls, that being contingency plan, or CP2, and incident response, IR8 controls. Next slide, please. The C-SCRM plan is broken out into different sections. So you have front matter, system information, control baseline, and then there's the appendices. So I'm going to turn it over to Anthony to start taking us through the sections of the plans.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Tarina. Again, my name's Anthony, and I'm with the IT Security Division. And I want to start off today by diving into the core structure of the C-SCRM plan by examining its main components. We'll begin with the initial foundation elements, the front matter, and also the system information sections. This front matter is essential for establishing document control, providing necessary context, and clearly identifying the systems being protected, which sets the stage for the rest of your plan. Next slide, please. So we're starting with the front matter, and this is your cover page here. And just want to point out one thing: when you begin to develop your plan and when you're ready to publish, we would ask you to start off with the version number of 1.0. We would also ask that you can put in your acronym in parentheses underneath under the title section. Other than that, if you have a minor change or update to your plan, please use 1.2 or 1.3 and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So as we're going through, you'll see some tables where it says document change control at the bottom. Just to let you know, the C-SCRM plan has provided these tables for you. You do not have to create them on your own. We just ask that you fill them out in its entirety. So of course, the version number, as you update your plan, please make sure you go back and update that, the dates and the name or the author who made the change. That is very important. Next slide, please. Similar to the previous slide, again, the table was provided for you. This is a review log. We would ask that you fill out in its entirety, and then make sure you put all the corrective dates every time you make any changes to the plan. Next slide, please. So with the table of contents, we know as you begin to make changes, and you may have a few folks working on the plan, page numbers may change as well as sections. If you do, please, anytime you're making that update before you send us a published version, we would ask that you go back to the table of content, just double check, just to make sure everything matches up. We do have a lot of plans to review, and we want to make sure we can find the information that's listed based off of your table of content. Next slide, please. So when it comes to the system name and identifier, this section provides a system unique name and identifier that supports that collecting security metrics and make it traceable. So the identifier must be retained throughout the system lifecycle. This is a compliance mandate to adhere to specific guidance. This particular guidance is offered in the NIST 800-161 Rev 1 Appendix B, just for reference sakes. Now, the tables you see on the left versus Table 1 and Table 2, when you're filling that out, if you need any additional guidance or assistance filling this out, we would recommend taking a look at NIST 837 Rev 2 Task C1, and that's system descriptions, and it offers some supplemental guidance for you to complete this section. Again, I'll just repeat, it's going to be NIST SP 830-37 Rev 2 Task C1. That will give you some additional guidance if you need any additional help filling out this particular section. Next slide, please. So with system descriptions, we're looking for the vendor to provide a comprehensive narrative of your system. We want to see you covering the purpose, the function, and the information it handles, where it process, stores, and also transfers. We want to know that information. As you can see on the screen, we're looking for that who, what, when, where, and how. That's very important. If a system is a major information system, we would like you to, you must list all the applicable applications it supports. For each application it supports in a major system, or if it's a minor system, or if it's even a subset, we want to know that detail. The more detail, the better, because we have to review the plans. We want to make sure we have all the information on hand when we're reviewing that the first time. We also list any organizations that use the system, clearly note whether or not it's an internal or an external system. That is very helpful. Also, when it comes to the service model, if you're using software as a service, platform as a service, we want to know that. That is very important. And also, if you're using a public cloud or private cloud, please note that as well. Ensure the description of information that is processing within the section is fully consistent with the information detailed later in the system and environment, and also the control detail section. So it should match up exactly when we're reviewing both sections. Next slide, please. So the system security categorization, you'll see the table at the bottom. Again, this is inside of the C-SCRM plan, so you do not have to template, so you have to make this yourself. We'll just ask you fill it out again in its entirety. This is related to the FIPS 199, and that's Information Processing Standards, and this is a mandatory standard just for your information. The specific guidance is for mapping information types of security categories, and it's provided in the NIST 800 SP 800-60 in volumes 1 and also in volumes 2. Another thing, when it comes to the system security implementation levels, we also want to know your high watermarks, and this is a critical part of the steps. Your high watermarks is determining that highest value across the security objective, and we want to know that. So that's very important as well when you're filling this out. These watermarks are explicitly listed in the system security impact levels in Table 3 of your C-SCRM plan, so that'll be inside of the plan as well. Next slide, please. So we're talking about two sections here, 4 and 5. First, we'll start off with the revision and the maintenance here. The primary goal is to clearly document who is responsible for the ongoing review and update of your C-SCRM plan. We want to know that. But this particular section, we're looking to know the role or the group that's doing it. The actual name of the person who documents this, you would have put in the previous slide 8, which is the document change control, and also in the slide 9, which was the review log. So that's where you enter a person's name, but we want to know the group for section 4 when you're filling that out. When it comes to section 5, system operational status, this section records the current status of the operational system, and using the table 4 is where you would place that information. So that's very important. It's possible for a system to have multiple statuses selected at once. For example, if you have a component in production, while another in development, you would have, of course, that status the same. If more than one status is selected, it is mandatory to complete the explanation field to clearly specify which system component or part corresponds to each section. So please fill it out completely. At the bottom, you'll see the statuses, the drop down that you'll see. You have operational, you have under development, and you have major modification. So those are the 3 choices you'll have in the table inside of the C-SCRM plan. Next slide, please. So with your system environment, we're looking for you to describe the system's operational context, its function, its resources, and its interconnections. Detail the system's approach to managing supply chain risk across the entire life cycle. It aligns with the organization's overall risk tolerance and mitigation strategies. Next slide, please. So here we provide an example of what we're looking for when we receive your system environment, example. We made a fictitious company called Acme, and as you can see, if you're going to use abbreviations for names like DMS, we actually the full word and the full context in front of it, and it was document management system. Also, if you use things like COTS or off the shelf suppliers, we would like you to explain once you put that term in exactly about the solution. Where's that solution that was purchased directly from a verified supplier? We would like that information as well listed on your system environment example. Other than that, please, next slide, please. Okay, so your operational environment types. This classifies the environment where the information system operates. It helps determine the applicable risk and security controls. There'll be drop downs on the table here that'll be listed in table 5 of the C-SCRM plan. And as you can see, your options will be on the screen, and that's the standalone / SOHO or the managed enterprise customer and other. So this will be your drop downs when you're working in a system. Again, this is all provided for you inside of the C-SCRM plan template. Next slide, please. So when it comes to network diagram, it's very important that this diagram is a visual, detailed representation of your system components. We want to see the boundaries. We want to make sure that everything is clearly marked so we can see exactly the flow of the data. We want you to identify the connection and the interconnections and also any external systems or networks that may be involved. We want you to include any hardware or software product that you could be using, the version number, the name. So it's traceable to your inventory. So, and we also want to see that traffic pattern. We want to know, again, which way that data is going to be moving throughout the system. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, this is what we're looking for. You can see it's clearly marked with the boundaries. It also provides a key and a ledger that's also noted there. And you also will see that we have boundary lines indicated throughout the whole example here. So this is the one diagram you do have to create yourself. Unfortunately, this is not inside a C-SCRM template because this is your exact network diagram. So you will have to create this on your own. Next slide, please. So when it comes to our system components, it's inventory. This is vital for effective security management and compliance. It is a comprehensive list of technology assets, your hardware, your software, and other components that contribute to the information system. It must reflect the system's current state and they're ready available. It must also include within the authorization boundaries that include mention like system description, your network diagram, and your implementation statement. This for like a hardware system specifications, we're looking for your device type, the role, your DNS name. For your software, we're looking for things like your software type, the vendor's name, the application name, or the version that you're using. That's what we're looking for. And on the next slide, you'll see a representation of what's inside the template. So next slide, please. So as you can see here, everything's it's a drop-down form. We do again ask for you to fill this out in its entirety, but you do have everything here from your hardware, your software, and your instructions. So everything's really there for you inside of the template to make it as straightforward as possible. Next slide, please. So this here shows the information exchange in the system connections. Again, this is table 6, and we can just please fill this out with the different entirety. We do want to know if it's a MOA, MOU, or ISA. That's very important as well. We want to know if this is a high, low, or medium. So please, these tables, make sure they're filled out in its entirety. It makes it easier when we're going through to review your C-SCRM plan. Next slide, please. So when it comes to roles and responsibility, this section identifies all stakeholders with any interest in the system design, development, implementation, also assessment and operation and maintenance or disposal. Identifying these roles as key cybersecurity supply chain personnel or designated contractors by risk management level. And that's on table 8. You'll see that in your side of your C-SCRM plan. Several roles are already defined within the risk management framework to ensure successful implementation. At this point in time, I'm going to pass it on to my coworker, Aiden Exmandu, and he'll go over the rest. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Anthony, and good afternoon, everyone. All right. So now I'm going to cover the remaining slides. If you can go to the next slide, please. Control implementation statement structure. All right. So with this slide, we are looking for 7 relevant areas that each control must cover. And these areas include the control identifier, implementation status, control origination, supplemental C-SCRM guidance, control selection, control parameters, and finally, the control implementation statement. We are going to go into each one of these in the upcoming slides. So next slide, please. The control details, we want to make sure that each control has enough details as possible. All right. It gives a detailed description how to document each security control, and it explains what each control does, how each control is implemented, and how well it mitigates against risk, and also the response, who's responsible for maintaining these controls. We want to also highlight how these controls integrate with organizational security measures and how compliance with organizational standards is documented. Furthermore, with all the details, we want to ensure that each control is monitored, how each control is monitored and reviewed to remain effective over time. So these are just some of the details that we would like to see within your plan. Next slide, please. So when it comes to the implementation status, there are 3 statuses that you're going to select from. You're going to select whether it's implemented, which means that the control is fully implemented and functioning as intended. And it's going to be planned, which means that you have implementations, you have things in place that needs to make sure that control is functioning properly. It's not 100% accurate or fully functional, but you'll put it in place to make sure that you can apply it as it's intended to be. It's not fully intended, but there are rules and regulations, or there are standards that you're trying to put in place to make sure that these controls are applicable. And then the next one will be not applicable, which is rarely used and is rarely appropriate, but it can be used for controls that truly cannot apply to your system. All right, so those are the 3 statuses that you're going to select from when you're filling out your statements. All right, next slide, please. And the control originations. This is how these controls are being originated, how these controls are being applied, or how they apply to your specific system. You have 3 specific areas that you select from. You have common control, system specific, and hybrid controls. And these controls, when you select these specific ones, they must match how they are actually implemented. For example, common controls are shared across multiple systems, and system specific controls, those controls only are specific to the specific systems that we are mentioning. They are catered or apply only to the implemented or specific system. So those are very system specific. And then hybrid controls include elements of both. When a control is marked as common or hybrid, implementation statement must identify the related systems, align with any system connections listed elsewhere. So you want to make sure within your plan, you select each one of these statuses and ensure that they're documented correctly. All right, next slide, please. Control implementation statements. For each of these statements, when you're documenting them, you want to make sure that, as Anthony mentioned earlier, we want to know what the who, what, when, and why, right? Instead of just citing documentation or referencing additional documentations that we can go look at to get the information. We want to know what actually is being done for each and every control, and also must be written in present tense instead of past or planned future actions. We want to make sure that you're listing everything out, spelling out everything out so we can clearly understand what each and every control is what is being done for each and every control. Next slide, please. All right, just continuing with the control details. We want to make sure that each control, you spell out all the acronyms. As Anthony mentioned earlier, we want to make sure everything is spelled out. If you do have, let's say, ODP, you want to make sure organization defined parameters, spell those out, spell out any versions that are being used. If you're referencing any plans, make sure you spell out any versions, highlight the dates that are within those documents that are being used. You want to also ensure that you're making everything is accurate and clear and consistent throughout the entire plan. All right, next slide, please. All right, so common control implementation statement. This is just an example of how you can go ahead and document your common control within your plan. All right, so common control, for example, CA1, that is for security assessment authorization policies and procedures. This can be inherited by multiple systems, so you can use this statement across multiple systems and using the same example as the statement that's been documented for all the -1 controls, if you're using that as an example. So for example, CA1, as I mentioned, security assessment authorization, you can use this to uniformly and inherit across multiple systems. We're going to see an example on the next slide. So if you want to skip to the next slide, please. All right, so this is an example of how we would like for common controls to be documented. It must list the agency that the common control is being inherited from. For example, this one shows agency X as where the common control is being inherited from. All right, and it also lists out the dates, the revision dates, and the numbers, version numbers that are being applied or that are being referenced within this specific control, or that are being referenced for this particular implementation statement. So you want to make sure you have all those details listed out as accurately as possible. All right, so this is just an example. If you want to skip to the next slide, please. All right, this is something that we will not like to see when it comes to the plan. Instead of like just writing this control is inherited common control, that does not provide enough details. We want to have as much details as possible. As mentioned in the previous slide, we want to mention the agency or the company that the control is being inherited from, what exactly is being done for each and every control. So this is just writing this control is inherited. It's an inherited common control. Does not suffice, and we need more details within each implementation statement. Next slide, please. All right, system-specific control. All right, so these controls, these are specifically designed for your system, right? You have to put in the parameters as to what exactly is being done for the system. So, for example, within this, we'll just use AC7, unsuccessful login attempt, right? This is parameters that's set by the individual system. You will set how many login attempts that you will have to use until you get timed out. Right? So that is specific to each system. You set those parameters, and then you will give what exactly those parameters are. We're going to see an example. If you want to switch to the next slide, please. So for AC7, as I mentioned, it's unsuccessful login attempts. We're just referencing how many unsuccessful login attempts it typically take for a system for individual to be locked out. And you have to set a specific limit to each and every one. So some of these system specific, you're going to have a part A and part B, which we'll see in the upcoming slides. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. All right, so this is part A. So this, you're enforcing how many failed attempts should be allowed before the individual is locked out. So for this particular system, they're enforcing a limit of 10 failed attempts, and then it'll give you how long it will lock you out, if it's for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So you set those specific parameters yourself. So part A will list that specific requirement. And then next slide, please. Part B would give you how long you're locked out for. So let's say if you're locked out, would it be 30 minutes you're locked out, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you set those specific parameters. All those should be highlighted within your implementation details. All right, so all of those information should be within each one. And that's exactly what we're looking for when we're you're writing out your plan or when we're reviewing your plan. Next slide, please. And as again, incomplete, this statement here is incomplete because first of all, part A and part B are not completely filled out. As you see, part B, it just says individuals are rescreened as necessary. That does not provide enough details. And also in part B, it does not restate how many and what the requirements are. So we want to make sure you're very, very specific with all of your details. Just giving us the basic or just rewriting the statement does not suffice as response. All right, next slide, please. All right, hybrid controls. Hybrid controls, these are controls that are split between two or more organizations. So you have someone that will be responsible for, let's say, the development, the implementation, assessment, and then you have someone that will be responsible for a certain aspect of the control. So these are controls that are split between two individual systems or two different systems. And you have to list those individuals that are responsible in each of these statements or controls. Next slide, please. All right, so there part A, let's say for incident response, part A and B, you list out the company that's responsible for the integration or the implementation of the control, and then you list out, you speak to who exactly or what versions or where in the document or policy that control is being inherited from. If you split them between, let's say, AWS or Azure, you can use those two documents, but you want to ensure you highlight exactly where within those company or those documentations we can find that this control is actually exactly being implemented or where we can get the details from. Next slide, please. And this is just an example of hybrid or inherited control or hybrid control. And this portion states this control is hybrid, and it states exactly like I mentioned earlier, agency X is responsible for the implementation of this portion of the control. And then in the following upcoming slide, if you want to switch on the next slide, please. In part B, will give you exactly what is being done by agency X when it comes to that specific control. All right, next slide, please. And this is just an example of an incomplete statement as well. Part A just lists this is inherited. We want to know who is it inherited from. And then also just listing that Acme, this response are not addressed where and when and how for this specific control. So just listing out this Acme system is SO reports, identify security incidents, information is required. It's not enough information for us to mark this control as completed. Next slide, please. All right, so that's just a little bit of the details of what each and every control what we're looking for in each and every control. Now, the portion of the document appendices, we have Appendix A and D. Appendix A is going to give you list out all of the acronyms that are used within the document. Appendix B will just list out all related laws, regulations that you cited from, and then Appendix C will be any type of like plan, policy, life cycles that you reference within the plan. We want to see all of those attachments within the document. All right, and then Appendix C will just be all of your individual system plans, which will include your incident response plan, your system security plan, or contingency plan. Contingency plan, or all of those applicable plans that are referenced within this document. That's where you attach all of those documents. So these are all of the appendices that also should be available within the plan, A, B, C, and D. And then we also have the final slide. If you can just skip to the next slide, please, which is Appendix E. Appendix E, this lists out the details of all of the controls that are listed within the document. So if you marked ACC as hybrid or inherited, or whatever you selected, or whoever is responsible, this will give you a breakout of all of the controls that are within the document. This is just a one-stop shop where you can just look at it and then see exactly how each control is being implemented within the document. All right, with that being said, I am going to hand it back over to Tarina. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anthony and AMAX. So I know we went over a lot of information. For some of you, this may seem daunting. So I'm going to foot-stomp the preparation guide. The preparation guide has a lot of information. It goes step by step and matches the C-SCRM plan template. We tried to give you enough like basic information to help you get through your plan. For some of you, this may be like discovery. For others of you, you may be able to get through it quickly. What we're going to do is when you submit your plan, you will get a response back. You will know if your plan was acceptable or not. So if it's not acceptable, we will give you a roadmap to success. So even if you feel like it's a lot today, we do ask that you do your best effort, right? So when you're doing those implementations, try to dig deep and send us information in good faith, and you know that you tried, right, to do your best in, and we will give you something back if it's not good enough to try to give you that roadmap to success and help you get an acceptable plan. So now I will turn it over to Amber to talk about the questionnaire.
Thank you, Tarina. Next slide, please. All right. So Polaris has a C-SCRM questionnaire baked in as part of its overall supply chain risk management strategy. The questionnaire serves as a snapshot of the entity's SCRM policies and procedures. This has been mapped to relevant industry standards and allows us to understand where you are in your journey for C-SCRM maturity and how our entities within our GSA marketplace fare. To provide some background, the questionnaire was developed by GSA and refined by leveraging feedback from an RFI. The questions therein have been mapped to NIST 853, as well as 161 Rev 1 and CMMC. It has references to CIS's qualified bidder list, as well as their SCRM template. The responses from the RFI allowed us to tailor it more to provide a less daunting task for both small and other than small businesses. Next slide, please. All right. The SCRM plan is broken out into general sections, and we'll explain each section and generally what we're looking for with each section. The general section is general questions about your policies and procedures about SCRM and how you source your information technology. SCRM, supply chain management and supplier governance, will explain processes and supplier management, business continuity, and how you perform quality assurance. Secure design and engineering will explain your product design practices, if that is relevant. Cybersecurity allows us to understand the security of your network and systems that run your organization and how you connect with your supply chain partners. Next slide, please. Physical security. This explains how you protect your people, assets, and facilities. Personnel security, explaining how you keep your people and company from posing a security risk. Supply chain integrity. This focuses on the hardware and software and product integrity internally, as well as those items that you may sell or provide for other agencies. Resilience. This helps us understand how change impacts your organization and what you do in response. Next slide, please. These two slides just feature a screenshot of the questionnaire so that you can understand the format and what that may look like. Moving left to right, we have this mapped to CISA and their supply chain risk management template, as well as numbered individually based on our template and its sections. There are the questions themselves, as well as what we are looking for in a vendor response. Yes, no, not applicable, or short answer would be the requested response types. You would include your vendor response, and then a final explanation will explain what exactly we're looking for within the question. The main tag references whether or not the question is a main question or a follow-up or resulting question. Next slide, please. All right. The questions are also categorized in the as an offer type, whether you provide services, products, or perhaps both. There are certain questions that we recognize will not be relevant to all entities. Therefore, we would ask that you put not applicable and provide a short response. The questions, again, will be mapped to relevant industry standards, and you will see those controls listed individually with each question. Next slide, please. All right. So the responses will be documented in column E of the spreadsheet. They again are yes, no, short answer, or not applicable. There's also an alternative where there may be a better way to provide response, perhaps a certification, proof, rather than a written response. We also are welcoming to relevant working links and attachments to supplement the questionnaire. Next slide, please. All right, recommendations for success. We're looking for a 100% completion rate, complete answers, and thoroughly explained processes. We would recommend that you designate a point of contact from your organization within your organization. Please, no consultants. This person will collaborate with the appropriate internal parties to collect and compile responses for the sections. The best points of contact will consist of individuals in IT, acquisition, procurement, supply chain, security offices, or even sometimes counsel. While related, each section is relevant to a different aspect of your organization. Next slide, please. All right, we're moving into talking about the telecommunication services portal. The TSC portal, as we call it, is a secure document repository that is auditable and allows us to receive sensitive information such as your SCRM plan or your questionnaire, which may be considered proprietary. This is how we safely receive information from external sources. This is where you will access to upload items, and you will also, an appropriate GSA subject matter expert will retrieve these items and perhaps correspond with you through this channel. Next slide, please. All right, included here and in some previous information is a request form. We were asking for specific points of contact, name, email, the awarded entity name, as well as a phone number so that we can request an account be made for you. If you have not filled out the request form, please do so. This will supply us with the necessary information that we need. You cannot request an account on your own, and the account that you have will be tied to the apparent awardee entity, not your joint venture or CTA partners, just the awarded entity. Next slide, please. All right. This is the homepage for the TSC portal. It features information on OCTA as well as a user guide. The TSC portal homepage requires that all Government contractors use Okta credentials to log in. For assistance, we will direct you directly to the TSC portal help desk, which is tscportal@gsa.gov. Next slide, please. All right. Upon entry and access to the TSC portal, you will reference the upload documents section to upload your documents. They will be associated specifically with the Polaris portal. The vehicle will also be Polaris. The contract selected from a drop-down menu will be the entity name, the awarded company or awarded contractor, the contract number, and the SAM UEI. This has already been populated in the TSC portal. You will also include the reporting year, reporting period, and the reporting year. This would be the month and the year of the upload. Next slide, please. All right, expectations. Who needs to be available? Points of contact and process owners. We would recommend at least 2 in the case that someone cannot access or maybe loses access to the TSC portal. You will still remain, you'll still have some level of access if things need to pivot or change. This is also used for an artifact exchange. Should an SME request additional documentation, you will send those follow-up documents through the TSC portal. The TSC portal also uses a naming convention specifically for artifacts, and that will be done by the NIST control number. And we'll start with the NIST control number, the sample number, as well as an artifact description, so name of the document. But it must begin with the NIST control number if it is tied to a specific control. Please do not upload the same document twice. We do not delete anything from the system, so if you have uploaded it, it is there. Next slide, please. That concludes our review of the TSC portal. Please put in